Oh yes, we were fighting warforged last we left our intrepid adventurers. We were in the Shady Inn talking with Kalinar, and he'd revealed what he thought was the main plot of the campaign. Of course, we've got such a huge list of things to do.
It was the main plot of his campaign.
Yeah. Later on in this session, at one point, who was it? I think Aurora was like, "How about we just quickly do this void monster thing and get that out of the way, and then we can get back to And I kind of feel like that we should do that thing that Kalinar suggested, because sounds like a good idea. Sounds like it'll work. I don't see any reason why we can't do it right now. We just have to get over to the sigil and hop back a ways and make our way forward again. Take the long way. So anyway, first though, we got to finish fighting these warforged. Now, we've had some discussion about the length of combats and how they keep getting longer and longer and super longer, and how we can go about reducing that. Rather than jump straight to a new system, John had a couple of ideas he collected from various places for how to make combat go faster, so we decided to start using them. He brought it up right at the beginning to discuss with the players. So I think there were three things. Expanded the crit range.
Yeah, you crit on 18 or higher.
Or 20.
Which is actually cool because, well, it dovetails nicely with the other thing that we did, which was I decided to just go for it, and monsters have half the points and do double damage. So everything is more intense.
Yeah.
But the thing that's interesting is people crit more. They use we're using that crit table, and on the crit table, if you do half their hit points, which is now a quarter of their hit points, you get a cool thing like, some major effect, which is actually cool. And it's fine if that happens to a bunch of enemies, right? And then the other thing was one issue is, like, there's often times when it seems like this combat's basically over, but it's just a matter of calling it. And I was thinking, well, you don't want to call it because 4th edition expects you to use down your resources. But I was also finding that because combats were taking so long, I was avoiding them. And so we were only having one combat a day anyway, so it was irrelevant. But I didn't want to just decide, well, we'll just call it. So I brought in what seemed like a pretty good morale system, which is just based on a saving throw and whatever. And when you're bloodied, you might do your surrender behavior, which is either run away, surrender, or some things will fight to the death. But
so first round of combat, I think it was our turn right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay, it was our turn. So first thing we did was finish pounding down that the chain guy, the warforged wall of chains. We did a couple of things to him. Oh yes, he'd been knocked unconscious the previous round by Kalinar, because I threw Kalinar up against him. And then.
So everyone just waited for Kalinar to have his turn again. He was the one who actually.
No, Croesus tried. Croesus tried coup de grace and missed.
Oh yeah, you critically failed.
Yeah, which turned out to be okay because Kalinar is a striker and he's right next to the guy. So we just, had him go again, and he coup de grace.
He massively coup de grace him, and I was like, yeah, that killed him. But then later we discovered a mistake.
Oh,
but
right, yes.
We can bring that up later.
Yes, we weren't accounting for the warforged BS. But anyway, a massive coup de grace. And then all the other warforged around Kalinar started, smack bang.
Right, they're those guys who are basically black suits of armor. That's all you can see of them. And they're massive fists, and they just all start punching Kalinar.
Yeah, and he's all surrounded and stuff. So he goes down, and I have to use word of life to keep him from dying.
Yeah.
And I sort of glanced at the other party members like, do I waste that? They were like, yeah, go ahead. Okay.
Is Kalinar worth it?
Well, he's of secondary importance.
But they keep pounding on him pretty good.
Yeah.
So he's still almost dead.
Yeah. And then next time his turn comes around, he does something to get out of there or something. I can't remember. He wound up under the table. Oh yeah, his morale check failed. Because he's an NPC, so he does morale check things now.
So he was also winded and out of stuff, so he just turned invisible and hid under the table.
Yeah. So let's see, what other cool things happened? It was after he got out of there that I reminded John about the warforged undead BS thing, where they're still active when they're below 0 hit points. and you have to bring him down to -half or -full or something like that.
And I'd forgotten with that guy. So what I did was I had him sort of, looked like he was dead, but then he started twitching, rose up stiltily, and he was like all destroyed, and half his face was hanging off, but he clambered up. And that was the moment that Serendipity's fireball went off and like blasted the whole room, bladed everyone, and he just keeled over as a steaming mass.
Yeah, he did the Terminator thing.
And that was basically the point where most of their morale broke. And one of them took off. I remember the walls in this place were all cracking and going down. And one of them just took off through the wall, through like 5 walls down the way.
Every new room he entered, someone would go, ah! Because apparently although the walls are paper thin as far as damage is concerned, soundproofing is fantastic in this place, apparently.
They just don't care. They hear like a bunch of like weird, horrible noises coming from the other room, and they're like, no, whatever. It's just a Tuesday.
Anyway.
Shady Inn is still in Allenway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they killed most of them, and there was one remaining guy. One guy tried to run away and got killed running away. And the one remaining guy just knelt down, covered his hands and face, and said, I surrender and beg for mercy.
In like a monotone. He knows our weaknesses, apparently. Of course, Cricket urged that he should be destroyed immediately anyway, because these are dangerous things. But everyone else was like, no, they're people, etc., etc. So we started trying to interrogate him. And, it's a warforged. They're very robotic. It's not easy to interrogate them.
Yeah, they were trying to get stuff out of him. They intimidated him decently, so I wasn't even going to have him speak.
Yeah.
But they intimidated him, and so they're like, tell us who sent you. And he said, it would not be optimal for me to tell you who sent me. The only reason I surrendered was on the chance that I might get away and then come back and try to kill you again.
I love his honesty. It's great.
There's I don't think it's very likely that you'll let me live, but there's a chance, so I surrendered.
Yeah.
And it would not be optimal for me to tell you anything.
So at this point, intimidation has failed, even though we did a good job of it. Aurora busts out the charm. Aurora sweet talks him.
Well, the intimidation was pretty good, because I set the difficulty at level 20 hard or something like that. And it was DC 39. And he hit him. But Aurora wanted to like diplomacy him, and I'm like, okay, that's level 30 hard. And that was DC, I think. It was like DC 45 or no, it was DC 39. That was the thing that was DC 39.
Yeah. So she got 50 plus on her roll. It was like, I don't know if it's a critical or almost critical, but she rolled really high.
She got like 10 above a hard epic.
Yeah, it was incredible. And so the Warforged became quite talkative, actually.
And he totally opened up to her.
Yeah, this Warforged was crushing on Aurora. It was kind of weird, actually.
Well, and he after he talked for a while, he just sort of got confused. Like, he was like, well,
why am I talking like this?
Yeah, and I feel like I want positive things for you, but I don't really see how that's optimal. In fact, killing you is probably optimal, but yet I don't want to kill you. Why don't I want to do what's optimal?
It was doing the whole Star Trek robot, what is this human thing called, love thing, or anyway. So this was a great opportunity to get more information out of him, obviously. So we kept on prying, and we found out that the obelisk was still active, was still giving orders.
He had been just standing there on a rooftop or something.
Yeah.
And the Warforged that knew the right control codes came up and said there's new orders from the obelisk. And a Warforged approached him who had the right cryptographic codes and said that there's that indicate that there's new orders from the obelisk. And that there was this new secret communication station that had been set up in Allenway that they weren't supposed to talk about. And he took him there, and he got new orders from the obelisk.
Now, at this point, Croesus just perks right up. Because the obelisk is a very big deal for the Oblin. I mean, it's where the word obelisk comes from. It's derived from Oblin. So anyway, he starts, getting all like, you can talk to the obelisk? Why, this doesn't make sense. Why isn't the obelisk trying to get back to the Grey Wall? It's the interpreter of the law. It has to know that the important thing is closing the world's wound. Why is it not, basically doing his Croesus thing. Starts talking about the mole people that stole it. all that kind of stuff. No, it's funny. We all know that the mole people are just deranged ramblings as players, but as characters,
No one knows.
Croesus is our authority on these things.
So
Oh, the mole people. Yeah.
And while we do realize that Croesus is a little funny in the head, we have no reason to disbelieve specific pieces of information. So, it gets to be quite a confusing conversation about what the obelisk is and what's up with it.
well, and Croesus said, the obelisk should return to the Oblin and close the world's wound. And why isn't he doing that? And the Warforged opines that, the Warforged's name was Beef, by the way. Beef opined that, probably closing the world's wound is not optimal. I mean, the obelisk always does what's optimal. So therefore, closing the world's wound must not be optimal.
At which point, Croesus segfaults and he's like...
he just grabs his weapon and starts walking forward towards him.
Yeah.
And says, he probably doesn't want to return to the Warforged or the Oblin, because they don't do what's optimal. They just spend all their time doing one task, closing the world's wound, which is not optimal.
Yeah. And Croesus is like totally going to smash this guy, just kill him.
But then
he's blasphemy of the highest
But then
order.
he continues philosophizing that, what the Oblin are doing is probably good. It's probably useful to, maintain some sort of status quo. It's not bad. It's just not optimal.
Yeah.
It seemed to talk him down from killing him.
Croesus is like, this is deserter talk. Yes. I think, who was it? It would have been Cricket and Hank. No, Cricket and because we tried to decide right off the bat, what should we do with this guy? And half of us wanted to destroy him immediately, and the other half didn't. And Croesus was on the didn't want to destroy because he's a surrendered prisoner. You don't kill a surrendered prisoner. That's what the law says. And so then things started flipping around during the conversation. Now Croesus wanted to kill him, and I remember one of the people that did want to kill him originally had reversed. I think, was it Serendipity? Bengal started more, top tower started soul trials of time. Dublair that wanted to kill him?
I don't remember.
Anyway, I just remember being amused how the battle lines keep changing around, and it's still always balanced, so you can't decide, but...
I realized partway through that he shouldn't be telling you guys all this. He was like, and they're like, so can you tell us where this, secret, where there was this place where you talked to the obelisk was? And he was like, oh no, it's secret. I'm not supposed to tell people about that. Oh. And went more onto his, it's just, why did I tell you that? It's because I wanted to do something nice for you. But it wasn't optimal.
So the party finally decided the best way to get the location of this communication station and whatnot was to offer to sell Cricket to the obelisk. And convinced Beef that this was actually a good idea. That if they sold Cricket to the obelisk, Cricket would be extremely useful.
Because he did talk...
Cricket's very optimal.
Yeah.
Well, Cricket did talk to him about it, because she said, the Warforged are just machines. They're not alive, they're not people. And he had a retort, which was that, the Warforged just follow orders, but we follow the orders of the obelisk. And the obelisk always gives orders that are optimal, so what we do is always optimal. But domestics follow the orders of whoever their bosses are, and therefore domestics are idiots because their bosses are idiots.
Yeah.
You're just as stupid as whoever's in charge of you. Whereas Warforged are always doing what's optimal because the person giving us orders always gives us optimal orders.
And I sort of raised the issue, like, what if I was owned by the obelisk? Then I would be doing optimal things, right? And that made him think.
They asked, what if the obelisk got corrupted so it's no longer optimal? To which he just thought, well, it's the best. Since it's a theoretical thing, it's still the best chance for optimal, since we know that no one else is optimal. So we may as well still go with it unless you have some strong evidence to the contrary.
Yeah. Which kind of makes sense.
But it was interesting because usually the Warforged just done random things. It was kind of interesting to have a chance to talk with them and sure, he's just following the orders of the obelisk, but he's thinking. He has these philosophies and ideas and opinions about stuff that's not just whatever, right? Like he has for example, the whole thing where why doesn't the obelisk go back to the Oblin? He doesn't know. It's just his theory based on the evidence.
So we ultimately settle on the gambit of using Cricket as a scout by suggesting to him, hey, why don't you go and ask the obelisk if we want to sell this domestic to you? She's a very powerful domestic, very useful to your goals.
He could be very optimal. So.
Yeah, and if the obelisk owned a domestic, then the domestic would be optimal, which would be good.
Now, I was getting a little worried because I wasn't sure what the rules were around the obelisk owning a domestic, whether it's something that could do that or not. Another question.
It may not be alive, or it may not be a person.
Another question for tech support when I finally get my response, when my ticket reaches the top of the queue. But either way, either it's allowed or we're just screwing with these guys anyway. I can play along with the initial steps.
Yeah.
You could pretend to be sold to a warforged even though it's wrong and just not do it. As long as it's a lie.
I was still having some trouble with that because I'm quite sure that you're not allowed to pretend to be sold to someone because that's like... But if you're not allowed to be sold to the obelisk, I can pretend to be sold to the obelisk and it's all right. So...
Because that's what your current owners would ask you to do. Yeah.
So basically, I was what I could do is I could play. Here's the logical hoops I jumped through. I would go with them and go through all the motions of like, okay, maybe I can be sold. If it turns out I can't be sold, this is like a Gill thing. If it turns out I can't be sold, then I was bluffing the whole time. If it turns out I can be sold, I was honest the whole time. Either way, the actions are the same.
This is like when Gil would bluff to make things actually true.
Yeah,
it's like, I worship the pirate god. I guess there is one.
Yep.
Actually sounds like an epic destiny. You can just bluff things into truth.
So I go along with this warforged, and everyone's sort of following along behind. I cast this ritual to do like group telepathy. Didn't roll very high on the Arcana. It expired on the way there, so that didn't work. I go to this safe house, and the warforged beef knocks on the door in this special way.
He does like a little finger tap that's like some kind of code.
Yeah. And they let him in, and they let Cricket in, and they're all like, "This is something weird is going on here. You're not supposed to bring non-warforged." And he's like, this could be a warforged essentially. And so they bring Cricket inside, and we go down to the basement of this building. This disused. It's in the abandoned warehouse district.
As all good buildings are.
Yeah. Go down to the basement, and there's like 20 warforged just sort of standing around down there. And some of them are really high level. I do a check.
Yeah.
At this point, Robin is all panicking, like, get out of there, Cricket, get out of there. But of course, she doesn't know.
Yeah.
So I'm just going along with the plan.
In the center on like a pedestal with a little claw is a waystone.
Yeah. And it like glows, and then this guy goes and puts his hand on it.
What's the waystone?
Those are the crystals that the oblin are grown from, and then are trying to seal the world. They're embodiments of law. So I'm trying to remember the exact sequence of events here.
They said that they were going to try to sell you, and also they were going to report what happened with the fight. So he goes up to the leader. No. He goes up to the waystone and says, "Oh, obelisk, this is what happened, and also this domestic wants to be sold to you, so that you can own her or whatever he said.
So that she can become optimal.
Yeah, essentially.
She wishes to see the optimalness.
And you said, okay, well, it takes some while for him to get back to us, so whatever.
Yeah. What are the...
In the meantime, let's make you comfortable. You're our guest. You, on your hands and knees. Yeah, you can sit there. And
so one of them made a chair out of himself. So I went and sat on that warforged.
And
hopefully not one of the spiky ones.
Well, he said, that doesn't look... That's not comfortable for your fleshy body, right? Here, you guys give me your capes, and he like laid a pile of capes on top of the warforged who was her chair, and the other one was like, okay, go get some. You guys need to
you need to eat, right?
Eat food, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I don't really need it right now. And he's like, oh, you need to do that other thing. You need to pop, right?
You need to pop
poop. Yeah.
She's like, no. Okay, well, we'll get you some food. What is food? Here, take this. This is 100 gold. Take this and just buy whatever this buys in food.
Send a warforged out to go get some food. And I thought of saying something, but I was kind of interested. And sure enough, a short time later, as Warforged came back with like dozens of roast turkeys and you know, a huge repast. He's like, I'm going to need some help to get the rest out of the cart upstairs. I had to buy a cart as well.
Just bring that all in and set it in front of Cricket. She's like, and the leader realized immediately that was stupid.
Yeah.
He was like, why didn't you think? Why didn't you realize that was too much? And it's like, well, you said to spend 100 gold. That's it. You idiot. That was so not optimal. And they had this fight, and then the guy who bought the food walked away being like, you're the one who's not optimal.
And this is why domestics are superior to Warforged. They actually think about stuff and will, you know, interpret their orders.
He ordered some wizards to start freezing some of it.
Yep. Anyway, a message came back from the obelisk at some point, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, some people, while you were waiting, a group of 5 new Warforged came in, and they all put their hand on the waystone and went, and then went standing around.
Yeah.
And then, a message came in, so the leader went over, and then he, what was he did before? But he just walked over to Cricket and said, restrain her, and a couple tried to grab him, and he pulled out a spike dart, which is basically a syringe. You can administer a potion against someone's will.
Fortunately, I had readied an action, you know, to dodge if they were to try to do something like this, if they were to attack me in any way.
Yeah.
Because I figured, he's getting a message from the obelisk. Who knows what the message will be?
Who knows if it's actually the obelisk?
It could be, you know, kill her or whatever. And restrain her is almost as bad. So I immediately dodge and I roll for initiative. And fortunately, I rolled super high because they rolled super high, or maybe they rolled average and they're just really good. But anyway, I managed to barely beat them on initiative. So I just legged it. I ran. I ran up the steps to the front door, and there was a guard, you know, huge, tough guard, Warforged, who was blocking the door. And so I run, timeless trek, open the door, run outside, and he blips back and closes the door behind me.
Yeah, well, as soon as she got out of the alley, she heard the leader say, never mind. And they just slammed it away.
But yeah, it's a good thing I saved that timeless trek. That was a perfect opportunity for it.
I was right about this time that she was bolting from that she got a service call from the Temple of Freedom.
I just managed to rejoin the party. They were all like, what happened, Cricket? And at this point, it became the next hour is an incomprehensible blur in my mind because everyone was talking about everything all at once and arguing about everything. Everything. Everything that was possible to argue about, we were arguing about. It was amazing. So, yeah, I get a service call from someone higher up in the Temple of Freedom. And it's just, it's internal to my head. They, like, say, you know, we've managed to arrange for, like, some sort of half-hour sending equivalent. It's a two-way communication thing. Because we figured that, you know, what you reported was worthy of a little bit of, you know, interaction. We can't just do this in 25-word chunks back and forth. So I don't know if there's an actual ritual for this, or if it's just something that John House ruled that, you know, the Temple of Freedom's probably able to get a hold of something to do this. So I started talking with this representative, and he wanted to get one of my owners on the line. And so I immediately went, serendipity! Then Goldstar Lore, top of the tower, Shepherd's Zil, Stride through time, Doom to Lair. And everyone's like, of course she would pick serendipity. Then Goldstar Lore, top of the tower, Shepherd's Zil, Stride through time, Doom to Lair.
Who originally had the smallest investment.
Yes.
No investment.
Well, it's still the smallest investment, but Cricket just sort of thinks that she's the sanest of the bunch. And so, if anyone's going to be a representative of her, it's probably best that it be serendipity.
Right.
Ben Goldstar, more top of her tower, Shepherd, Soul Stride, through time,
But serendipity didn't really know what to say.
Yeah.
So the rep was basically like, well, if you are okay with letting your domestic speak for you, then that's fine with me. I just want to make sure you're...
Yeah. In the loop, as it were.
You're in charge of this, so you need to know what she's saying, because as long as you approve of what she's saying, that's fine.
Yeah. And so she was like, you know, okay, Cricket, go ahead. And so Cricket's like, okay, well, the first issue and the main issue I'm having here and then I explain in detail how we time traveled and modified history and all that kind of stuff. And as soon as I start explaining in detail this stuff, the rest of the party are all like, oh geez, she's spilling every bean to the Nazis.
Yeah.
And it really surprised me too, because I have been completely open that this is exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
This is why I'm contacting them, is to
Right.
spill these particular beans, because I have a question about those beans.
Those beans are
Specifically,
confusing.
those beans I need to ask a question about, so I'm going to tell them everything. But it just sort of, at this point, it just sort of dawns on them that she really means that,
Yeah.
you know. But I've already said it. And so now everyone wants in on this
Phone call.
conference call as well, except Aurora, who she doesn't believe that we're in a conference call. She just knows that we're in terrible danger from these warforged, and we should be fleeing. And instead, we're all like touching fingers to be in contact with. She's like, "Come on, stop with this stuff." And we're all like, "Come on, Aurora, touch fingers with us."
The first person that you talked to basically came to the conclusion that Cricket was insane or defective or something.
Yeah.
But Serendipity, I think it was, asked
Yeah.
to speak to the supervisor.
Right.
So they spoke to the supervisor.
Yeah.
And they went through the whole rigmarole with them, because I think he'd only gone through a little bit with them.
Yeah.
And he asked the other owners, particularly Serendipity, but I think at least someone else was in on it, whether they really believed all this time travel stuff. Mm-hmm. And when they said that they did, he was like, well, let's see here. I guess what needs to happen is, it sounds like you're...
He looked some stuff up on Cricket at this point.
Well, it sounds like your domestic is defective, so she'll have to be annexed by the Empire. So we'll compensate you for her. She needs to return to the Temple of Freedom to be serviced.
Yeah. And basically, it was a little bit more than that, though. He was like basically saying, we own her back now.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And
you don't own her anymore, but don't worry, we'll give you some money.
Now, I was, two things. First of all, that's not in the rules. That's not something that the temple is supposed to be able to do. And I hadn't, been given any sort of overrides yet to say that, oh yes, they can do that. And so I, right off the bat there, that was not good. But the other thing is, I was also a little suspicious because right before that, he had gone and looked up some stuff on Cricket and found out that she was a 16th level character, which means she's
he
worth
commented,
like
you're worth a lot of money.
Gold or something ridiculous. It's like 10 times a 16th level magic item in terms of cost, and so. So I got very suspicious at this point, and I pointed out that the rules didn't allow for the Temple of Freedom to just reclaim a domestic under those circumstances.
He was like, well, it's a special case, so that's just how it works.
That was when I said, could I speak to your supervisor?
Yeah.
And then we got to...
He hesitated for a while, but finally they got through. He said, I'll put you into the manager of domestic relations, the head of the whole department.
This is like, we're really up there now.
Talking to Lee.
Yeah. And so he's like, okay, yeah, what's going on? And so I tell him that the previous supervisor had tried to claim. Yeah, actually, we discussed that in the car. It was a bit weird, their names.
That sounded like a snake name.
They sounded like squawking.
Okay.
To
me, I don't know why. I don't know. It could be whatever you want. I thought those sounded like snake names because they're serpent
everyone
priests.
was expecting German names because you want to do all German theme for that.
That's true.
I was expecting snake names, and instead you were making chicken noises. And so it was kind of...
They were supposed to be snake names. I guess I'll come up with some different... I need to come up with what a Nazi snake sounds like. Okay. So, anyway, whatever his name was.
So we mentioned he tried to do this thing that, seemed underhanded or whatever. It seemed like it was not kosher. And so he said, oh, and then we just sort of hear him turn away from the microphone or whatever it is, and order the execution of that guy.
It's totally unacceptable.
Yeah, it's totally unacceptable, and ordered the execution.
And he's already fled the building, sir. Hunt him down. If you don't find him within a day, give up. Otherwise, kill him.
Yeah. And so everyone else around the table is all, shocked and horrified and appalled because they overheard this. But Cricket is just sort of beaming proudly. And I pointed out to them that, you know, this just shows how trustworthy the Temple of Freedom is.
Yeah.
You know, they do not brook any corruption.
Yeah.
Your ownership of me is completely secure. You can trust them with me.
Right.
Because, you know, this was, you know, insta death for breaking the rules like that.
Yeah.
And Cricket was, I was very concerned, or Cricket was concerned about the impression that the Temple of Freedom was going to leave on the party because she knows they're prejudiced against them. And then she was like, "Oh, this is like the best thing ever. This just made the best impression on them. They couldn't have hoped for more. This is even better than if there hadn't been any corruption at all, which I kind of hope there wouldn't be. But you know, and everyone else is just like, oh.
They're like, tell me again how the E-part Nazis.
So anyway, I explained to this guy the whole time travel thing. And everyone else is now arguing so vociferously because they're now appalled at this whole execution order thing that I can't even get a word in edgewise anymore. And I'm reduced, by the end of the session, I was just sort of whimpering at the end of the table. I was like, I just want to ask a question. I just want to ask a question.
And the guy on the other line would just basically come to the conclusion that they were all crazy.
Yeah.
And was just going to end
He was going to hang up. And so John said, okay, Cricket, you want to convince him to listen to to actually pay attention to you, make a diplomacy check.
Right.
And I had already burned through like all my
or your roll modifiers.
All my roll modifiers. I would have spent anything, like dailies, anything,
whatever,
in order to boost this diplomacy check because this is like the most important diplomacy check of my life.
Yeah.
But I had nothing, so I rolled, and it was like a mediocre roll, which is still pretty decent for me. And then I'm like, you know, Aurora, you give a +2 bonus to diplomacy checks for allies within 5 squares, right? And she's like, I'm not giving you that bonus. I don't approve of this. It's like, Hank, will you help? You know, do a help roll? And he's like, they all tried rolling. Well, not all of them. Some of them tried rolling.
Serendipity and Hank tried to help, and they both failed.
They failed. They couldn't help. They wanted to help. They couldn't. Of course, Croesus wasn't going to.
Yeah.
And I don't think he could have even if he had wanted to. So I had to go with this mediocre roll. And John, like, stretched it out, like, trying to decide whether he's gonna... And then finally, he relented. He said, okay, all right. I will schedule you... This is above even my pay grade.
Yeah.
I will schedule you to talk with the High Priestess of the Temple of Freedom. And that's like Pope level. This is the top. There is no higher, unless somehow miraculously the Serpent Queen was to come back to life, which is impossible because she's dead. And so that was where the session ended. And then when we did the monologues afterwards, it was the session had ended, but the insane babble of argumentation and stuff just continued on because everyone suddenly was confronted with, for the whole campaign, they just sort of smiled and nodded and humored Cricket.
Right.
They'd all had their various views of what domestics was all about and what the Empire of Endless Flowers was all about, and it was all academic.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, it's real.
Yeah.
And we're going to find out who's right and who's wrong.
Right.
Is Cricket right? Is Hank right? Is Croesus right? Who is right about this? And so suddenly all of these disparate views that they hold that they had previously been able to agree to disagree on. Right. It's now the most important thing ever. And so it was quite the chaos mess there.
So basically everyone's arguing about who you actually belong to?
No. That part is actually the least ambiguous part of the whole
everyone
thing.
believes that you belong to the party.
Everyone believes Cricket believes she belongs to the party.
Okay.
If Cricket belongs to anyone, she belongs to the party.
Right.
She was rightfully salvaged, hasn't been registered. I'm sure if I'm talking with the High Priestess of Freedom, we can probably arrange for registration. Even though usually you have to actually go in for that sort of thing. I don't know. But yeah, the most important thing is that Cricket will know if we get to more time travel shenanigans, we wind up in a situation where someone both owns and not owns me.
Right.
We need to know Cricket needs to know.
Yeah.
What the official solution to that is.
Right. So does Aderon?
Fortunately, that is not the problem, because in the alternate timeline that we established, Aderon relinquished his ownership. And so that's the reason that Cricket is at least functional right now, is because, even though she doesn't know how to handle the situation, both options result in the same practical outcome.
Are there rules on how to handle being owned by multiple owners?
Oh yeah, it's just a shares thing. It's like a corporate
So if enough people
possession.
vote,
Yeah.
then Cricket be ordered to do something.
Yeah, it can come down to a vote.
Yeah.
Cricket has basically chosen Serendipity, Vengelstruggle on top of the Tower Shop, Soul Strider, Time Doomdelayer as the sort of like CEO, as it were.
Okay.
But as a whole, they can vote to overrule that. Or even tell Cricket, no, she's not the CEO.
Right.
Aurora's the CEO. And then Cricket will be like, okay. As if my life wasn't hard enough already. So yeah, and so everyone is all
And meanwhile,
into
all the Warforged are
doing something, and Croesus is now on about the obelisk because he knows the obelisk exists. Well, he thinks the obelisk exists. He is obsessed. He needs to get to that communication waystone.
Right.
Because Cricket reported on that. I think at one point they sending to me while I was down there.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, in order to get a report. And so I had to cram into 25 words everything I discovered so far, which included how many Warforged there were and how high level they were.
Right.
And that was when Aurora started freaking out and saying, like, Cricket, get out of there! But the sending was over at that point, so...
But they were varied in level. Like, there was, level 2, there was, a couple guys at level 20. It was a spread. There was a wide variety.
Did anyone consider that it was not the obelisk on the other end of the Waystone?
I think that...
I don't know if anyone considered that out loud.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm sure that it was something that came to mind, but I think Croesus is probably, or would probably be like, maybe it isn't, but I have to check.
Yeah. How do you know it's not Corbland?
Because, because I think he's mentioned that Corbland only really says rise and follow me or something like that.
Well, they actually did ask. Actually, now that I think of it, they did ask about that. Like, how do you know it's? We did talk about this, because he said, "How do you know it was the obelisk talking to?" It's because he knew the right cryptographic codes, and they're like, "Well, couldn't someone else just know the codes?" And it's like, no, it changes every hour, and only the obelisk has the private key.
Yeah.
To which no one knew what he was talking about.
Right.
But
yeah. So yeah, that was where the session ended, in total chaos.
Right.
But Cricket is in a good place, I think. She feels happy because the High Priestess is going to give her an answer.
Yeah.
And,
how does this all work?
How will it work?
What are the other questions that Cricket had? One was definitely the time ownership.
Yeah.
Like multiple timelines ownership. I thought there was other ones.
I thought so too. At the time, I was a little bit like, oh geez, I've actually got to ask the question now, and I sort of panicked and blanked on any others. Yeah, I don't know.
It's pretty funny that one of the guys tried to steal you.
Yeah. And at the moment I reported him, it's like, oh, well, we're gonna execute him.
Yeah.
And so I was like, see, they're the good guys.
But he had already fled, so obviously as soon as you asked to be transferred to his supervisor, he
packed up his
bolted.
desk.
Yeah.
So he knew he was on the chopping block.
Yeah. It's a very serious business.
It was awesome, actually, how shocked everyone was. Like, they're just like, whatever, NPCs are always BSing around, and they're like, I was like, that's unacceptable. Have him executed.
Yeah.
What?
Did you plan that, or did you just wing it?
No, I was winging it.
And
I kind of had in my mind that someone would try to pull that BS to try to steal Cricket when they realized how expensive she was. But
we've had people try to steal Cricket before. And they always get the rules wrong. They're like, oh, I'm gonna salvage you. And I'm like, but I'm already owned. It doesn't work that way anymore. It's like, no, I'm claiming you. It's like, you're an idiot. Worse, you're an idiot who doesn't own me, so I don't have to do what you say, unlike the other idiots who do own me.
So you're saying is the Warforged was right.
If the NPC disposed of your current owners, then they can salvage you.
Yes. They'd be breaking other laws. But,
I'm surprised you didn't agree with the Warforged when they're like, you're an idiot because you have to do whatever idiots tell you. And you should be like, yeah, good point.
Actions are not optimal.
Yeah.
I want to help you, but it's not optimal. I'm so confused.
I know, that's right. When he left, he was like, I'm really looking forward to seeing you again when I come back to kill your friends.
Yeah.
So yes, it's been, 3 sessions now since I put in a request for a call, for a service call, and next time maybe I'll get my answers.
So what was everyone arguing about then? Like,
basically about whether the Eve are good guys or not, whether Cricket is actually crazy, or whether she needs help, or and what needing help means.
right?
Hank was all about this is the help she needs. She gets her answer.
Yeah.
Just goes whatever. Yeah. Whereas other people are like, no, she's especially Croesus and Aurora are like, she's a person, and this is a dangerous delusion that she's under, and we need to help her.
And talking to the Temple of Freedom is only validating her crazy beliefs. So she shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
They were talking about Croesus was like, yep, back to the temple for a brain scrubbing, something like that.
Yep.
Or get out. No, yeah. The Croesus or the temple's breaking out its brain soap right now. I don't think Croesus would have said that, but Tim was saying that.
Yeah. And I was very insistent that no, I'm already fully brainwashed. I don't need any more. I just need an answer. I just need to be told what to think.
Yeah.
I think basically Aurora and Croesus think that Cricket is under a delusion.
Yeah.
Hank is just like, just let her believe whatever she wants and go with it. That's her thing. And Serendipity, I think, just likes having a servant.
She's all like, mine. And it's hilarious because she has the smallest share. Anyway, so looking forward to next session where we get my answers, and then also maybe we solve some other problems in the campaign.
Yeah, there's a debate. Everyone's like, we need to go into that warforged thing and get and see what that waystone is. And we were like, well, can we just wrap up the whole end of the world thing quickly before we get to that?
Yes.
I mean,
and maybe we could, because Kalinar's got a plan. It seems pretty good and straightforward.
What was Kalinar's plan again?
Take Aurora back in time, replace original Aurora, and then when the Void Monster tries to eat her soul, it'll eat itself instead.
Yeah, okay.
Guys, don't you want Cricket to be less confused? She's having a mental breakdown right here. Why won't you just try to help her? If this is going to help her, we should stand behind her. She's the one who wanted to talk to the temple people to get some clarifications. You guys are just... You especially, Aurora. You're so mean. Think of Cricket. Think of her feelings, not what you think her feelings should be.
Dear Diary, so I've just discovered that today Serendipity, Van Goldstratum, Malora, Toppler, Towers, Shepherd of Souls, Strider Through Time, Doom Delaire, and Cricket have informed the Eve that we have traveled through time, and now I'm concerned that we have another giant target on us. Because they will be wanting to know more about that. And also, this happened while we were just walking around the streets that have warforged standing on the tops of buildings, ready to jump on people and kill them, and random things. And apparently there are 25 warforged, some of which are level 20, in that room, which Croesus now desperately wants to enter. And we really need to go somewhere safe and talk about the situation and make a plan of what to do. And they're instead walking through the streets, having private conversations with priestesses, informing them that we have power that the Eve want. I'm a little bit concerned about the wisdom of that decision, and I think I'm gonna scream.
In hindsight, if we wanted to keep the time travel thing a secret, maybe I should have added Strider Through Time to my name.
Okay, these Eve guys don't even believe us about the time travel, so who cares if they find out? We didn't tell them how to do it. We didn't tell it when we had happened. We didn't tell it where, when, how, why. We just said it happened. They don't believe us, so whatever. And our friends, who are supposed to be trusting and helping Cricket, are trying to indoctrinate her again to have a mindset that is completely contrary to her nature, which is very hypocritical because that's exactly what they want to prevent that's what they want to prevent having happen to her by the Empire. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who hasn't forgotten, I guess Serendipity probably hasn't forgotten, and Cricket certainly hasn't, that the Empire has reformed from their slaving ways, and the domestics are the solution to that problem. So why can't we just let cricket be fixed instead of making things worse? On a side note, if I don't hear the word optimal ever again, it'll be too soon.
So, the warforged say that the obelisk is back. Wow. I don't know what to say about that. They've got to be lying, right? I mean, if the obelisk were back, we could save the world. Because all we'd have to do is go find it, and the law would be completed, and we could start winning this war. And I don't know what to make of that, because they're crazy, right? The warforged are crazy. They have to be crazy. It can't be real. They're the obelisk. Wow, that would be. I don't know what to compare that to. It's the obelisk. It's everything. It's everything we should be. And wow. Also, I suppose, as if they're arguing about cricket again, and they were totally gonna give the Eve the obelisk. No, sorry, the time travel is this dream is confusing, but just thinking about it, obelisk, huh? But yeah, anyways, Eve slaving little mind scrubbing snake priests want to wipe Cricket's mind, and Hank, I've got to touch that waystone. I've just got to touch that waystone. I mean, what are they doing to a waystone that they can use it? If the Oblin could talk through the waystones, we could change this war, right? Shoot, I've got to go join that thing and stop this. They're gonna give away the secret of time travel, and that'll take over the dream when I just shoot. If level 20 wave war, that's a tough fight. But maybe we could talk. They're not good to talk to. That's the problem, though. This is difficult. Maybe I should just, help with that Eve slave mind indoctrination thing instead. But the obelisk, wow.